You're still on mute, Karen. Karen, you're still on mute.
There we go. Hello.
What I meant to do. Thank you, Karen.
Huh? You're offended
Thank
by
you.
my,
I'm gonna mute my phone.
yes.
All right, let's get this show started. We'll welcome Commissioner Doherty to our happy little group. Who is now on the budget subcommittee meeting or group commission subcommittee, whatever it is. I think we have one thing to add to the agenda, or we're going to put that under hub funds. Connie?
We can put under hub funds.
Okay. We plan to just add a discussion on a recent hub fund request. Okay, so let's get started if everybody's ready. I think we have to approve the agenda, Margaret.
Are you asking for a
Needs
motion?
to unmute yourself.
Okay, I
great.
move that we
Yes,
accept the agenda as sent out.
great. I guess I'll
A
second that.
second. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, so let's discuss the relocation of the ORC office at the Portland State Office Building. Connie, you want to head that up?
Yeah, so I think as I pointed out before, the commission, due to the fact that we lost an ADW over the last biennium, and there's been a lot of inflation that we had to add into our budget, we need to look for savings. And I know this will be a decision made by the full commission, but I just wanted to point out that, you know, the more time we spend, the more dollars we're finding by leaving the PSOB office. We did find that there are 2 other commissions. I don't have the names in front of me, but I can get them to you, that have already gone completely remotely. And we have talked to all the other agencies, and we can find nothing that would preclude us from doing this. We also have verified that we will have complete access to the remainder of the building, and we can move out no later than April. So we'd have some savings even this year. And if somebody will rent earlier, we could have savings even earlier than that. So there's really nothing I needed to
We
do
give a
here
notice?
except for see if you had any questions on the finance side about moving out in advance of our meeting tomorrow.
I'm sorry, yeah, you kind of temporarily
I'm
froze there.
sorry. So
Did we get-
really, the only purpose of this is to see if you have any questions on the finance side of a possible relocation.
I don't, I mean, I think it's the right thing to do. Margaret?
And I just had one question. I would assume that the cost of moving and getting all the supplies and archiving things and so on will be presented tomorrow, if you have some sort of an estimate.
We'll be able to provide you with an estimate tomorrow. I will also say that the cost of moving will be greatly offset by the rent we won't
Okay.
have to pay the rest of this year. So there will be no impact to the budget except for positive.
No, and I understand that. And it would also help maybe for tomorrow if you can find out, because my one question was, are there any other commissions that are officeless? And so if you could find out what the 2 commissions are, I think that will help at
Right.
Tomorrow's meeting.
Yeah, I had it, but I left it behind, unfortunately.
That's okay.
Remote and dollars to move.
I'm sorry, did you answer my question? Did we give notice that we're leaving?
Yes, we did. As per your direction, it's April is the end of the 6 months.
Okay, good. And have we thought about a smaller building, temporarily
Yes, we have several options. One thing
occupied? Meaning
What-
we're not there every day?
Yeah, one of the things that we have discussed is looking at something more rural. We found that that's not necessarily all that beneficial because everybody's moving out of Portland right now. So a lot of the suburbs are actually much more expensive than they used to be in comparable prices. We could save half by moving into a very small office outside of the downtown Portland area, the better option we found would be to stay within the building and get a smaller space here. And they do have space available here if we wanted to. And we could go down as small as a shared office with someone else. Probably the cheapest option would be about $1,400 a month.
Okay.
And that's a
Okay.
shared space, and nobody could really get to it anyway, but that is an option we can do.
So we could discuss that at the meeting and decide. I mean, I don't see the benefit of that personally, but Margaret, you have any opinion?
The only other question I had is if we do need to have physical meetings, is there availability of a space to be able to do that?
Yes,
In
we're able,
an office building or someplace else?
just like we do now, we can rent, or we can, borrow free of charge, reserve office space in any state building.
Got it. Thank you.
And we did confirm that,
Okay, so we're done with that topic, correct?
correct.
So you may have to, I mean, I'll bring it up in the meeting tomorrow as far as what we've discussed, but you may have to call on you to fill in the blanks. Okay,
Sounds good.
okay, right, sorry. Occasionally everybody gets a little frozen, so I'm thinking it's me.
I think you freeze a little bit. It's cold there.
It is cold here. Okay, let's discuss the hub funds. Karen, are you taking over that?
I can, if you'd like.
Karen, do you want me to just keep going with
Yes.
it?
Well,
Go for it.
okay, so on hub funds, I guess I'm not exactly sure what we were wanting to discuss about them. Where are we at with them? I mean, what is it that we need to know right now? What are your questions?
where are we
That's
at
how I
right
would start
now?
it.
Yeah, let me, before you go, Karen, let me kind of give you an overview of what I would like to talk about in this, and then
Okay.
Karen can give us an overview of where we technically are.
That sounds
So-
good.
So two things that I think are really important. Number one, we have a hub funds request in from the track. And Rod Lowe is here and he can talk about why he's made that request, which I would appreciate. And then number two, I'd like to talk about, do we want to continue to distribute hub funds the same way we have in the past? Or since we have, we're kind of turning a new corner here, do we want to do the process any differently going forward? And I'm open either way. I can tell you that one of the things that we talked about in the fair meeting yesterday is they're going to try to get us our applications much earlier. And I think all the associations are as well, which will help us in the process to make the best possible decisions. Along with that, somewhere in the process, and Karen can talk about this too, we do need to address the fact that there's a possibility that we may not be able to get to all of our funds because of limitations. And that's primarily because we lost one ADW and inflation, which has cost us. I'm hoping to show that we're offsetting a lot of that by doing things such as limiting some costs, but we may have to be aware of the fact that worst case scenario, we may have some limitations. With that, I'm turning over to Karen for all the important stuff.
Hang on a minute, Karen. So when you say change the distribution model, I don't have any objection to that, but what are you talking about? Instead of doing the biennium, do what?
Well, I was still thinking about doing the biennium. I think one of the things is we've gotten to a point, and again, I'm open for discussion on this, is I know for one thing, as an audit finding and on my own concern, is in the past couple of years, we've kind of been just doing a percentage and not doing any follow-up on that. I've already taken on
You mean making people report on how they spent the money?
correct. We do that with the fair meet.
Yeah.
So I've already initiated an auditing process, and Linnell was kind enough to go first for her association for the last year, and Randy's group is going second, and then the Core Horses are going third. So they'll all be done by the end of next week. But last time we just said, you get a percentage of money, and we gave them no restrictions on what they could use it for. So it's kind of hard to audit, other than saying, did you spend the money somewhere? So I might recommend that we have some type of guidelines in there, but that's up to this committee to decide.
Well, I don't hear anything wrong with what you're saying, Margaret.
No, actually, I think it's a good idea, because I think any sort of public, and are these public funds, or are these funds that have been raised through other wagering, or?
These are hub funds, so they're coming from our ADWs,
Okay,
but we are a government agency, so we have accountability for anything we spend.
well, I think the accountability on anything is not a bad procedure, and I think anytime money goes out, there should be some sort of an accountability as to either was it used for that purpose, how was it used? And it's the same sort of thing of going over what the requests are. Are these necessary? Why are they necessary? That kind of thing. So.
So even though, like, the Horsemen's Group would always tell us that they're spending the money on purses, we don't know that. Is that what you're saying?
Well, for example, last year in the letter, it didn't specifically say all money had to be spent for purses. It just said what percentage each organization got.
Okay.
And indeed, it was not all spent on purses for all organizations.
So that trip Randy took to Bermuda?
I haven't done Randy's group yet, so I don't know.
Be looking for that.
We don't, I will be looking for that.
Okay, go ahead, Karen. Then.
Yes, so, okay. Margaret, just to kind of further, so that you have an understanding of these hub funds, and stop me if you already do. They are generated for the purpose of the industry. So that's how that got set up for statute. So any funds that we take in that are hub funds, that we don't need, operations has to be covered first. There's revenue that is generated for operations. If that doesn't cover our operations in its entirety, then we can draw from those hub funds. The rest of those hub funds by statute are to be distributed to the industry. So that's, and when we approve them, we do approve them with what we believe they're going to be spent on. But the reporting part is what we haven't had. So we believe that when we are approving them in a meeting, yes, they're approved for purse money. That's what we believe it's going for. They can come back and say, can we reuse this somewhere else? And we can approve that too. But what we're talking about in this auditing piece is that we haven't actually had them come back and say, here's our itemized list of what we actually spent it on. And that's what we're going to be getting going forward.
Except for the fairs, right, Karen?
Except for the fairs. The fairs give us an itemized list of what they want to use it for, and that's what we approve it on. They can use those funds for some administrative fees. That's allowable. But typically it is supposed to be all for purses. And then we can make other adjustments. They had, in the past, we've had starting gate repairs and things like that we've approved for. So it's really anything that benefits the industry that the commission agrees to distributing those funds for.
Karen, let me add one more little piece in there. By rule, it does require that we fund the fair meets purses first.
First, yes.
And that's the only restriction we have right now.
Yes. So, and that is in statute that they have to be funded first. So right now, our limitation.
But it doesn't require that we fund them for what they ask for.
No, it does not.
Correct?
That's right.
Right.
So we have to fund them first so that they can run. But if they're asking for a brand new starting gate, which has happened, and we couldn't see that as being a good way of using the money, let's just repair what we have, or let's, they borrowed one from another fair, that sort of thing. Yeah, they don't just get what they asked for, but we do fund them first. Okay, so our limitation, we are almost at what our current limitation was approved for. With everything that we're going to spend, to the end of this biennium, we'll be at about 3.2 and our limitation is at 3.4. So right now with what we have that we're going to be spending up through June, we have about 167,000 left in that limitation allowable use. The cash that's left is roughly 270. And this, of course, is always dependent on the fact that things still continue to go the way that they are. Revenue still comes in the way it goes. Nothing else happens where we can't see anything else happening on the expenditure side that would be in addition to what we've already projected for. But we always say these things with that caveat that this could change. This is where we are today. This is how it looks. So in the past, we talked about the 315,000 that is the money that would have gone to TMB. It's money we allocated, and then the third and the fourth payment has not been paid out because TMB left. So the assumption was that HRA, the new commercial race meet, would assume those funds or assume that they would get those funds. But we do have to request, they would have to send out their own request to get approval for that. Okay, so that money's already, go ahead.
How much was that again?
So that was 315,000. Those were two payments of 157.5. So the third payment did not go out to TMB or to HRA.
Right.
But it did go out, not in that amount, but we did send out 152,000 to SARA. So the people who did pick up race days got 152,000. So in essence, we kind of did spend it, but we pulled it from our limitation in the cash that we have as reserves, if you will. So we either go ahead and we give the third payment of 157.5 to HRA when they're asking, along with the fourth payment that comes later. Or we say, oh, well, we actually did give out money for those, for that race meet to happen. So that's a commission call. I just want you to be aware that that money did get put out there for racing. It's not like it's just sitting there. But we have the little bit of reserve that makes up the difference. And I hope this isn't too confusing, and I'm sorry if it is.
I am confused.
There's always a little bucket at the end that we reserve
yeah.
back because we know that these things come along. There's a starting gate failure. There's something that happens. There's equipment. There's something that happens. We need more purse money for X, whatever. So we always have a little bit in the bucket, and it's not even just that we've reserved it back. It's that maybe more has come in or we have spent less. So every time we spend less in operations, it kind of stays in the hub fund bucket, if we look at it that way.
Connie?
The money we paid out to the fair meet was in last fiscal year. We still have the 315,000 to spend, plus some extra that the fair meets may be asking for. That's a short end of the story.
167,000.
Yes. And that we'll discuss that later,
Okay.
but I think
Yeah, so let me get straight. So,
you paused.
yeah. I just want to reiterate it so I'm clear, Karen, okay? So we have right now 160,000 that we can allocate to somebody.
Yes.
We have, what's the 270,000 that's left in the limitation?
So that's what looks like will be left in cash. So when we say we have a limitation, we can only spend 167,000 of the 270 that is the cash balance.
Okay, so 167 comes out of that 270.
Yeah, because you have cash and then you have limitation, and you don't always get limitation to spend the cash that you have.
And then we still have the fourth allocation TMB that we can give away.
And the third.
Yeah,
and
all of the association. So the fourth payment that is going out in January, February-ish, all of that still has to go out, and that's accounted for.
And Karen, we still have the equivalent of the money of the 3rd as well for TMB.
Yes,
So we have both
We have-
payments for TMB.
We have 630,000.
What she's assuming that in the number she gave you, those funds were already
they're
deducted.
already accounted for. So,
Including the 2 payments to TMB this fiscal year. Assuming that's what we do with it,
Okay.
TMB or whoever.
Okay, I was doing good until that thing came up there, Connie. So we have the 4th payment, which is 415,000. Yes,
How much is the 4th payment altogether, Karen? For all the industries?
for all of the, hold on, let me get back to that spreadsheet. So come February, we will be handing out another 525,000. That money is there, waiting for that payment to happen.
Plus we have the money that was not sent to TMB.
Well,
That's
well, hold on. So that includes 157.5 of it. Hold on, let me read. So the 525 includes whoever's going to get the TMB money in that payment. What is
And
sitting
how much
right
is that?
now, what is sitting right now waiting to be determined is the 157.5 that was the 3rd payment that didn't get paid out yet.
157.
Right. So in just numbers,
Yes,
TMB can look at, oh, it's 315,000 total, but where we are really at is what payment right now they could have if we approved it is 157.5. And then in February, if we say they can have that 157.5 now because they missed it in the 3rd payment structure schedule. And then come February, they can also have the 4th payment. They just take over where TMB left off. But
The
we can't, we should not be
315,000.
giving them 315,000 today. Let's put it that way. They would just fall into the schedule of payments where everyone is.
okay, so let me just say this, so I'm clear. 157.5 is from the 3rd payment that didn't get spent
Distributed, yes.
or distributed, and that could go along with the 167,000.
Yeah,
167, the
the
100,
100 is a separate.
that's completely, that's what we're gonna have left over at the end of the year, provided there's no other emergencies that we can still distribute to
Okay.
something like the fair meets.
Yes, that's
Okay.
the bottom of the bucket. The 167 becomes the bottom of the bucket.
And so 157.5 right now we could allocate.
Mhm.
And then come the 4th payment in February,
Mhm.
there would be 300, that's another 315,000.
Not another, that would be a $525,000 distribution to all the associations, including HRA.
And but what's that HRA amount?
157.5, which works against that 315.
Okay, another 157.5. Okay. Okay, I think I got it. Margaret, you have it? Okay, I think I got it, more or less. Okay, so at the end of the year, are we talking the fiscal year?
Yes,
So next June?
Well, wait a minute, end of fiscal, so the February payment is the 4th and final payment.
So when could we give out the 167,000?
we
What
can.
month?
That we
technically-
can do anytime.
Yeah, we can technically do that, and I have some ideas for that.
Okay, the 167.
Yes.
Okay,
But we're not talking about that today, I hope.
we're not. Okay. All right. So now can we shoot over to Rod there quick and say, Rod, what are you asking for, man?
Well, we've totally confused him, but
No, I got it. I completely understand. So,
Well, I'm glad you do.
so let me just give you a little history so everybody understands the history of what happened with new Commissioner Doherty. We, as of July 1st, when TMB dropped the ball that they weren't going to run a commercial race meet anymore at Grants Pass Downs, there was a scramble to get a license for a commercial race meet. So HRA, which is Horsemen's Racing Association, that was formed by the HPBA and financed at the time by the HPBA, put together HRA to get the commercial race meet license. New business starting from zero to save horse racing in Oregon, which we have so far. So, but by doing that, HPBA is taking the burden on trying to shore up HRA in trying to be a standalone commercial race meet. So in that, we are starting from zero, running the OTB network, working with Connie and the ADWs and getting source market funding and getting our OTB network up and running to make money for HRA, which supports the commercial race meet. Well, by doing that, there's a lot of upfront expenses that the HPBA has been helping with tremendously, but it's not really their responsibility to do that. HRA is the commercial race meet and the commercial race meet owner. So in doing that, we are asking for what TMB was going to get, which is that 315,000. It's actually a little bit more, that we can start building HRA as a legitimate commercial race meet business. And so we're just asking for what TMB would have got, and that helps us buy equipment. And in this next period of time that we're, getting into next year, we're hoping to build up funds so we can support a horse race meet for next year. And the ADW and source market fees and the OTB network. And so there's a little over $1 million worth of an equipment that is needed to run the race meet. And so we're asking for a portion of that. And so our application that we've submitted is a reflection of that equipment that we would like to purchase from between different sources, some from the HPBA, some that we want to buy ourselves. And I can certainly go through the list of equipment if necessary, but it's all spelled out there and what we're doing with that. And like I said, we're just trying to build a business so we can have a strong commercial race meet in Oregon. And that also supports all of the fairs that are in Oregon, because without the commercial race meet, we believe that the fairs would struggle and probably not make it either.
Rod, you already have this equipment? You've already purchased it. You're kind of asking for reimbursement?
The HPBA owns most of
None of
the
this?
equipment. I'm asking for it so I can buy it from the HPBA. And we have bought 2 of the pieces of equipment that is on the list. We bought the Peterbilt shower and trunk bunk trailer. And we bought that in an auction so that we could put it at the racetrack, so we could house jockeys and grooms or whoever it might need. It sleeps 14 people in that trailer. It's mobile. On the call yesterday, I mentioned it to the other fair if we needed it, that we would be happy to see about how we could share that if they needed it for their racetracks to house jockeys or grooms or whatever is necessary. It has 2, like I said, 14 beds, and it has 2 showers in it. At that same auction, we bought the John Deere disc that was necessary for the racetrack. Last year, we borrowed the disc and rototiller and loader and a few other things from TMB last year. That was a one-time deal. And so we're still looking at other equipment that we're going to need on top of it. But the rest of the equipment is stuff that we want to buy back. HRA wants to buy back from the HPVA.
And the HPPA got it mostly from TMB.
They did. They bought them from TMB.
So I know kind of historically, Connie, the budget subcommittee kind of poo-pooed capital type improvements like grandstands and things like that to the fairs or to any of the race, commercial race meets. I don't know that this was a rule. It was more just kind of a feeling that they weren't going to do that. I don't know that equipment qualifies as capital improvement, probably not.
Well, we can't run a race meet without it, is what it comes down to. And, you know, I question this as well. My first thought was, hey, why don't you use this towards purse money? Purse money is what we really need. What I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, is that they want to make sure that there's a clear separation between the two entities. And that's why they want to use that money for this. I also would like to point out that at least last year, and maybe for a couple years before then, the applications weren't saying what this money was for. So if we did like they did last time, they could have used it to have a party if they wanted to.
So a clear separation between HRA and OHBPA.
Correct.
So how, I mean, just how do you feel on funding equipment?
I would,
Karen?
Karen could go next, but I would say this is an extraordinary situation, but I certainly wouldn't want to do it beyond this first startup year. I mean, I wouldn't want anybody coming back next year and saying, well, we need this or that. That's kind of how I feel about it. But that's my thought. I'm new in this position and I'm going to defer to what the commission wants to do.
Karen?
So there is some precedence. Quite a while ago, years ago, Harney County was awarded money to rebuild or refurbish their test barn. So we did do that.
Yeah, I remember that.
So
And we have given money for starting gates.
yes, we have. So I do think that in light of the need, and as long as we're transparent about what we're doing with it, and it is money that is supposed to benefit the industry and versus a single person or whatever, obviously. I think that this would benefit the entire industry because we really can't we really can't go forward without it.
Margaret?
Being new at this, and these might be kind of naive questions, but looking at what the list is of what you have, and for it looks like 13 days of racing, is this something that that all 9 of these pieces of equipment are needed? Are they things that can be rented? Are they things that are only going to be used for 13 days and then you're going to like lease them out or something to other tracks? Because I was looking at things like you know, a 2013 3500 Dodge truck. You know, what is that to be used for at the track? Things like the John Deere tractors, number 1 and number 2. What are these used for, and do you need both of them? And so, you know, coming off of just kind of looking at budgets and having for the last 10 years having to cut budgets, going through and seeing whether these are things that are going to be used on a continual basis. Are they going to be leased out? Are they going to be rented? Are they going to just sit there? And do we need the entire list of 9? So that was my question, because I'm not quite sure whether, and you guys tell me whether the $323,000 is in the budget, in the hub funds. Does that make sense?
So I can start by addressing some of some of those things for you.
Thank you.
The equipment that we're asking for is half of the equipment that we actually need and are necessary to run a race meet. So for instance, we start training actually in May.
Mhm.
And that equipment is, we start building the racetrack for the horses in April. So we actually work that racetrack every single day from April until July.
So this equipment is not just used during the race days, it's used during training sessions and all that kind of thing, which could go on. for
It
months.
works, this equipment works 7 months out of the year,
Okay, thank you.
almost every single day. So there's hundreds of hours that we put on this equipment, all of the equipment. And like the Dodge truck, it pulls the horse ambulance. So you
Okay.
need a truck to pull the horse ambulance. It's also used for other aspects around the racetrack. We gotta get bedding for the hall installs, bedding for hall installs. There's equipment that needs to be transported different times, different places. So it transports that equipment. So you have to have a truck to pull the starting or to pull the horse ambulance. And so, and it does take 2 tractors. The reason it takes 2 tractors is on race day, we only have so much time during races in order for us to get the horses onto the track and get to the next race. So we have 2 tractors running simultaneously at that time, which also means you need 2 harrows that go behind the tractor to work the track. So, and of course, the starting gate is self-explanatory. The disc is something we use to break up the dirt so it makes it softer to keep it safe for the horses. I explained the shower and the truck trailer. That's for we've been lacking in a place for jockeys and grooms to stay at our racetracks for some time. You know, we found them sleeping in their cars in different places, find them sleeping in a stall, and we want to eliminate that. We want to be able to have the jockeys, the grooms that don't have a place to stay, to have some place to stay, and we want to be able to accommodate them. So that's the reason for buying the truck and shower situation. So
Okay, thank you for the explanation. Thank you.
you're welcome.
So I guess the second part of Margaret's question is, do we have the 324,000?
Yeah. Yes, so that is that money that has already been allocated and we're just reallocating it. So it was allocated and accounted for.
So we wouldn't give this away until February?
Well, we could give away we could give away half of it right now, 157.5, and then the second check would come when all the rest of the distributions go for that 4th payment.
And that's 157.5 again.
Yes.
I'm doing
So
math.
we've already accounted for this money and we actually already allocated it at the beginning of the biennium, like we do historically across all of the associations. It just happened that.
Right.
TMB
Is my math right that
singing,
that's
and now we need to do something.
315,000?
Yes,
Sorry, is my math right that that's a
that's the
315,000?
315,000. Mhm.
Okay, I have another question. Is this going to be used just at one track or is it kind of follow the horses? Or is it going to be used at more than just one track?
This equipment is just used at Grants Fest.
Okay.
They do
For
have
7
a
months.
fair meet there also. So it's
Pardon?
not just, they do have a fair
For
meet
7
there
months.
also.
They have a what also? We're cutting out.
A fair meet, so that's another 7 days of racing that they would. be
Oh,
able
okay.
to-
And they're using it, Rod said, from April for 7 months. Yes, Rod?
Yeah, until the middle of October.
I don't know, these Peterbilt shower trucks might be a good plan for Mayor Wheeler? I don't know. Just throwing that out there. Okay, so we don't need to make a decision on this at this meeting. I'm sure Rod would like that, but we don't need
Can
to
I ask
make.
one more question? Is this something that the other tracks need also, or do they already have that kind of equipment to keep the tracks in? Or do they go to your facility to practice and then they only go to the other ones a
That's-
couple days a year?
They all have their own equipment.
Okay, thank you.
With that said, all the horses are going, except for the ones that are out of state, they are
Mhm.
going to Grants Pass to get their training in
Yeah,
at the
that's true.
beginning. So
Thank you.
this track is unique in the fact that they can't go to Union and practice. They have to come down to Grants Pass to get that time in.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, so we're not gonna award this go round, Rod, sorry. We need time. I mean, technically we could have not talked about it today because the request just came in, but I thought maybe there's a push for buying the equipment or whatever, but it sounds like you already have the equipment. So it's just reimbursement of funds basically. So let's push this off at least till January as far as making a decision on that. Will give a little more time for the hub funds limitations and all of that auditing to work out, correct, Karen? Yes, okay. Connie, is that, you have a problem with that?
No, I think it would be appropriate to give them some clarification no later than the January meeting.
Okay, yeah, I think that's good. All right. Okay, so we'll bring this up again in the January budget subcommittee and then make our final decision. That will give me and Margaret time to ruminate on it as well.
Okay, and thank you for the information. I appreciate it.
Well,
And what about the other associations, the OHBPA, and OQHRA and the Ochoa people? How have they gotten any feedback, Randy?
To the best of my knowledge, unless something's happened that I don't know about, none of the, all the horse associations felt like this was probably the right place for this money to go.
Okay. Are we up to proposal to increase fees for licenses?
Let me make one last comment on the hub thing. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Is to make sure to our other commissioners is to, because as I say, I'm new to this position, so I'm not that familiar with the racing. But I think that the selling point on this is the idea that the horses are going to the Grants Pass track. It's kind of, that's where the training ground is. And that's where this equipment is going to be used. Because, I look at this and I go, for 13 days, how come they need this and this and this and this? But it needs a clarification that it's actually a 7-month process. And that helps tremendously.
Yeah, I just don't think, we can at the meeting tomorrow, we can talk about that. We discussed this, but I don't think we need to put anything up for a vote right now. Okay, so are we ready to go? We're moving on to increasing the license fees beginning July 1.
Correct.
Connie?
We did learn that, unbeknownst to me, that we have to put a package in the budget to be able to increase any fees. I thought we could just change it in rule naively, but we have talked to the finance people about it. And as I think I've told everyone before, our fees are significantly lower than pretty much everyone else's. And really, I think a lot of people think we should just raise it to 90 right away. But because there's so many people that are suffering with all the other increases in the world, I feel it's probably more appropriate to bring this in over a couple years.
Okay, so what do we have to do? We have to get approval from the state to raise the fees?
It basically has to go into our package, into our legislative budget, and they have to approve it, which will happen before the state anyway.
Okay.
Karen, do you want to explain that?
So I
better?
guess Randy's speaking for the Horsemen's Group.
Randy?
Hello, Randy.
We got, no, we don't have any, we looked at it. We don't see there's any problem with raising the fees. So you might, all the horsemen won't agree with that, of course, but no, it's,
When do they ever agree?
exactly. Thank you very much.
Okay, so this one we need to bring to the commission tomorrow, right?
Correct.
And everybody's comfortable, Margaret?
Well, and I think it's good. I mean, the idea of splitting it, literally, you're splitting it over the entire biennium, the raises, and at least it gives people notification. And I would assume, is this just a license, for example, I as a horse owner that races would have to get a license, and then another horse owner would have to get a license? Who are the licenses issued to?
That's a good question. Thank you, Commissioner. Basically, anybody that has anything to do with horse racing has to have a license. If you are a janitor and you work at the racetrack, you have to have a license. If you're a trainer, a breeder, an owner, any of those people, plus all the management team for the ADWs and any employees that they have within the state of Oregon.
Oh, okay. So in other words, it's just a license to literally work with the racing commission.
Yep.
Kind of. Yeah. Okay.
And what do you think, Connie, is the pushback on this? Anybody that would object to this?
I haven't gotten any pushback. We got a little bit of pushback when we initially talked about this, but we were talking about a different model. And I think some of that was coming just because of the frustration of the whole TMB situation at that time.
And you've kind of had your ear to the ground with the ADWs. They don't have any disagreement with this?
The ADWs are fine with this model.
And
Mark?
I've got a question about, so in other words, when it raises, for example, $75, that's where the licenses are issued once every 3 years, or is it every year?
Every 3 years.
Okay, that's not bad.
So some people might decide to get their licenses a little bit early if the $15 is really a big deal, but we don't think it's going to be a huge problem.
So how is that going to work where in, 23, it goes to 75 for a 3-year period, and then the next year it goes to 90 for a 3-year period? Will it just, during that 3-year period, it just goes up automatically?
Yeah, so anybody that has to renew their license or get a new license
During that time period?
during that time period will pay whatever rate that is.
Okay,
So they'll
okay.
pay 60 today, July, if they wait till July 1st, they'll pay 75. And then again, if they're on the fence between in 2024 and they choose to get licensed a day earlier to save $15, that's fine.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
All right,
Okay,
anything else? Anyone else? We all good? Okay, well, Margaret, would you like to adjourn?
sure. I move that we adjourn the budget subcommittee meeting.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank
Okay.
you all.
Thank you. Nice meeting you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You too.
See you tomorrow.